Is it Gilles in the UK? Welcome.
Oh, hello. Thanks for taking my call. Yeah, the name is Gilles. I've got a question for you two. What would a completely atheistic civilization look like?
I have no idea, because atheism is only about whether or not you believe in a God, and atheists can have a whole bunch of different political and socio-political views. And so I couldn't possibly tell you what an atheistic civilization would be like.
So do you believe it's not possible then? That it's only a private personal journey that somebody decides or concludes that there's no God and becomes an atheist? That
Well, of course, it's personal for each individual to become an atheist.
Mhm.
But when I say that I don't know what an atheistic civilization or society would look like, that doesn't mean I think an atheistic civilization is impossible. As a matter of fact, I think a majority atheistic civilization is inevitable.
right. And how do you explain it hasn't happened yet?
How do I explain that it hasn't happened yet? Religions are very popular. Humans are not.
And with like Christianity, it doesn't hurt that it became the dominant religion of the Roman Empire, and that the Roman Empire made laws that made it a death penalty to not be a Christian. It helps that the same thing in Islam. It helps when you proselytize at the point of a sword in the barrel of a gun.
Yeah, you're talking to
make
two
yourself-
people. Sorry, I'm sorry, Jim.
No. So, I mean, that's how it became popular. So why is it still popular? Because those people passed on those beliefs to their children and their children's children. And slowly but surely, with the rise of the internet, lo and behold, we see that as people get more and more information, as they start to see that places that are more secular do better in every sense of the word than places that are religious, we are slowly but surely turning the tide. But when you spread a belief at the point of a gun and a sword, and you make it illegal at the point of death to not have that belief, well, guess what? People are going to believe.
Yeah, we have fears. We have fears and ignorance, and religions pretend to offer answers and hope for those, although they can't demonstrate the truth of them. And then you're talking to two people who live basically in the first country that was established intentionally secular, without an official state religion. Unless I missed one somewhere, but so that's only in the last couple hundred years. And generally speaking, most people just de facto stick with religion and don't give it much thought throughout their life, which is why the trend is towards religiosity declining. But there's a hurdle to overcome until you get to the tipping point. It's like when I said that same-sex marriage was eventually, inevitably going to be legal. And I would say that the legalization of marijuana in the United States is inevitably going to be legal. And then you'd say, well, why hasn't it happened yet? And the answer is because it hasn't happened yet. We haven't got to the tipping point. I don't know what all the factors are.
Okay. Do you, would you consider the possibility that we are sort of programmed to be religious? That's in our brains. We have the seed of religiosity. That's why it keeps. We keep inventing religions. We keep being stuck to belief systems, and we can't free ourselves from it.
Well, I don't think it's programming. I think that we are not perfect thinkers, and religions exploit imperfections in our ability to think.
And since you think that atheism, an atheistic civilization or society is inevitable, do you have a sort of time frame in your mind, or you just leave it open?
I don't have a time frame, but we can look at the trend, and that the fastest growing religious dynamic are the nuns, the NONE nuns, the ones that don't have a religion. But the other thing we know is that this stuff vacillates, and so we have a trend for a little while, and then it'll spike up because of a war, because of a catastrophe, because of a terrorist attack, 9/11, that brought more people back to church, but it also brought more speaking out about against the church and things like that. So I'm 52. I'm pretty sure that religion is going to exist for the rest of my life, and probably still be predominant through the rest of the next generation's life. But I would say if I had to guess, within a couple hundred years, it will be the minority position.
Right.
But that's just me making shit up, because I don't have anything other than my best guess at how the trend appears to be going. You could reach the tipping point tomorrow. For example, we could, if there were extraterrestrials that showed up tomorrow, that could be a huge thing, because either they could say, hey, there is a God and here's why, and demonstrate it. Or they could be like, wow, you guys still believe in mythical realms outside. It's because you don't understand this and this and this. That could be a tipping point.
Yeah.
And how people react to something like that. Now, I don't think that that's likely to happen, because I think there will not be confirmed extraterrestrial visitors to the earth until after religion is in the minority position. That's just my guess.
That's your guess, right? I mean, I share your view that all of us, I mean, we were born in a religious world, and we're all going to die in a religious world. And 200 years seems about right. We might have, no, we'll be all dead before then, but before I bring your show, I was absolutely convinced that religiosity is virtually inevitable. But the figures that you've mentioned took me over to the possibility that we might, at one point, after we're all dead, have if not a non-religious, but perhaps an atheistic society.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think there are already.
Japan's pretty secular.
Yeah, Japan is fairly secular. There are a couple of European countries that are approaching it, but also they're getting backlash from the countries around them that are having like a resurgence of some things. And that's why I say that, that you've got this vacillation, but the trend is downward. I mean, my country is still around 70 some odd % Christian, and yours is about 59% Christian, at least with like the 2011 census. At some point, there's going to be a massive party when the UK census shows that religiosity is 49% or lower.
Yeah.
But it won't be that big of a deal by then, because, I mean, I watch a ton of British TV. Most of my favorite comedians are British. Most of my favorite shows. I'm a huge fan of Jimmy Carr and 8 out of 10 Cats and Castor's Countdown and, QI and all kinds of stuff. I watch Only Connect religiously. And so I see a lot, and it's like, you guys have got this sort of, I'm religious, you're not religious, not really that big of a deal. You're far more concerned with Muslims in the UK, who are still a fairly small minority, but you're concerned about the power that they're wielding and what changes are taking place there than you are about a Christian versus atheist thing, at least from my outsider perspective. In the US, though, it's still Christians getting together. Like, Judeo-Christian isn't a real thing, but it's a label that gets tossed around so that they can team up against the secularists, because it won't be long until atheism will be bigger than any single Christian denomination.
So, I mean, the world has many religions, but in parts of the world where religion is dictatorial, and I think about Muslim countries, I can't see how atheists can actually tip the balance. With the repression that exists there, it's if we have religions like this in the world, then we're going to be religious forever.
Not necessarily, because we're starting to see or atheist activists in Muslim countries. They're heavily persecuted. Yeah. Some of them do make it out of those countries. And what they're saying is that there's a large number of young people who are probably more atheist or certainly more liberal than their parents. In places like Iran and things like that, if you and so there is some hope that that's going to happen. And the more information that these kids have, this is one of the reasons why a lot of these countries are trying to build firewalls around their country and to limit information, is because that the scientific information that's out there definitely makes it harder to believe in a God. And also, trade helps a lot because ideas get communicated with trade as well. So we can't cut them off.
Yeah.
But honestly, looking at some of the activists that are in these Muslim countries right now and what they're doing, makes what we do kind of silly in a way, because we're not. I mean, there's some risk. Matt and I live in Texas. There's some risk to us, but it's certainly not the risk of having somebody throw acid in our face, or the risk of somebody beheading us. Or our families trying to kill us. It's not that kind of risk. But by the same token, what we do is important because we're out here every day or every Sunday talking about it, and then throughout the week as well. But in terms of risk, it's just not the same. So even in Muslim countries, we're starting to see some weakening of religiosity. I don't think it's nearly as great as it is in other, the UK or other countries outside of the Muslim world, but it is happening slowly but surely.
But it certainly is quite dangerous to be an atheist in these countries. So, I mean, the lady before was talking about privilege, and in that department, I think we're privileged that we can express concepts of atheism without being threatened. But the poor people that live, the poor atheists who live in these repressive religious countries do not have this luxury.
No, they don't. But they're still doing it. They're still doing it, whether they're out or not, and especially the ones that are out. They're doing it. That's why the Bangladeshi bloggers were killed. It's because they were blogging about being an atheist and being out about it. They were taking precautions, and unfortunately, those precautions were not enough. But they are out there doing their thing, and others are as well. And those that are quiet are still able to make Islam more liberal. Maybe they'll go through an enlightenment period or whatever you want to call it that Christianity did. But they exist if they exist in a secular world and they're the only ones that are religious, that's going to be very, very hard at that point to keep the entire world out and still be able to get the things you need, because no country is completely self-sufficient. You're always going to need something from another country, and that means you're always going to be open to ideas.
Yeah. But it's going to be a very slow process.
Oh, yeah.
Exceedingly
without a doubt.
Yeah. Painfully slow.
Right. But then you have things like Arab Spring and some other things that make you think, maybe not. But, things went back to status quo pretty quickly.
While I appreciate the fact that we consider and speculate about stuff, we're not going to make any more headway on this. And I appreciate the fact that you waited ages to take this call. But we are now well past the time that the show is supposed to end. And I need to wrap this up so that our wonderful crew can be let go. But thanks so much, Gilles, for calling in and giving us some food for thought.
Okay, I'll let you go and have fun. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.